Amazing twins of a wealthy widower never slept until a poor cleaner made an incredible discovery. Richard Hartman stood in the lavish corridor of his mansion, the weight of the opulence surrounding him suffocating. Each marble column felt cold against his anxious fingers. The laughter of his twin daughters, Lily and Rose, echoed from the other side of the house, a bittersweet reminder of what was lost: their mother, the heart of their family. The girls wore smiles that charmed neighbors, yet Richard couldn't shake the feeling that those smiles masked a deeper pain. Night after night, he stared through the glossy panels of his luxury home, feeling like a ghost haunting the very walls that sheltered his despair. Guilt wormed its way through him as he lay awake, listening to their restless whispers in the dark. How could he have nurtured a life that only highlighted their sorrow? He was a successful architect, respected, celebrated, yet here he was falling short as a father. The silken sheets that cloaked their bodies did nothing to ward off the shadows that crept into their dreams. Ice gripped his chest as he questioned his choices. Every decor choice, every painting on the wall seemed to taunt him, reminding him of a joy he could never restore. Then there was Maria, the cleaning lady who entered his life without invitation. She arrived during the day, her brawny hands wielding rags with the intensity of a warrior. Richard barely acknowledged her presence until that fateful evening when he discovered her tending to the twins' room. He noticed her gentle touch as she brushed dust from dusty dolls, the way her eyes skimmed over the family album she unearthed. He scolded himself for not being able to tap into that tenderness, unable to embrace the warmth she emanated. As Maria cleaned, she spoke softly to Lucy and Rose, words that danced around their mother's memory, the life she had built before the accident. Richard's heart clenched when he overheard Maria weaving tales inspired by the album's faded snapshots. Initially, he dismissed her, too self-important to seek solace from someone who scrubbed floors and dusted chandeliers. But her connection to the twins awoke something unsettling in him. Could there be more to her than the role of a cleaner? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Richard felt resentment bubble up as a revelation dawned. The twins thrived under Maria's nurturing aura while his own attempts felt inadequate and stifling. It gnawed at him. Had he become the villain in his daughter's story? But as he grappled with his pride, a relentless unease plagued his mind. He could see the connection growing, almost threatening. What would this mean for him, both personally and professionally? And then Maria found it, the letter hidden in the album that twisted the very fabric of their lives, a revelation that could change everything he thought he knew. The tension thickened in his throat. Could this document, cradled in layers of his family's past, unravel the meticulously constructed facade of their lives? Richard felt the icy grip of anxiety as he realized he was teetering on the edge of a choice: embrace the bond that had begun to flourish in the face of despair, or cling desperately to the fading remnants of a perfect family life. With dread coursing through him, Richard understood that he was always one discovery away from a truth that could change everything. Richard stared at the letter, its edges frayed, the ink fading but its content sharp as a blade. It carried the weight of secrets he wished to avoid but now could no longer ignore. Maria had unwittingly thrust open the door to this undisclosed chapter of their lives, and he felt an overwhelming urge to unravel its contents. The weight of potential revelation pressed on him, fueling a tsunami of dread within his chest. What if this letter revealed truths he wasn't ready to confront? What if it peeled back the layers of privilege he'd built around himself, exposing vulnerabilities he wished to keep hidden? He could have refused the pull of his curiosity, but the thought of keeping the twins in the dark any longer was unbearable. If their mother were here, she would have insisted he face the truth. Dad? Lily's soft voice sliced through his spiraling thoughts, and he turned to see both girls peering around the corner, their faces painted with concern. In that instant, he realized how profoundly their unspoken fears mirrored his own inner turmoil. Here were his daughters, living beneath a sky that had dimmed since their mother's passing, yet they remained radiant in their innocence. The urge to shield them flooded him, but for how long could he maintain this facade? "We were just wondering if you would come join us. Maria told us she read from the book today, and we were thinking about it." Rose's eyes sparkled with hope. It struck Richard like lightning. The emotion in her voice was laced with need, a desperate appeal for connection, for normalcy. His heart ached at the notion that Maria provided something that he could not, bridging the chasm that his grief had created. "Of course, I will be there soon," Richard replied, but he knew that the sincerity in his voice only masked the inner conflict. He had two choices: to hide behind the cold luxury of his home and maintain the pretense of control, or embrace the uncertainty that the letter presented and confront the possibility of a different reality. As the twins scampered back to their room, laughter trailing behind them, Richard felt a surge of purpose. He could no longer be paralyzed by indecision. With rapid determination, he ripped open the envelope, his hands trembling slightly, and read the words that might reveal the truth buried in the ashes of his past. The letter held more than history. It spoke of familial obligations, promises unkept, and truths that challenged his very identity. Richard felt the ground beneath him tremble, each sentence dismantling the bearings of his once certain world. The roots of his family tree extended far beyond what he had envisioned, weaving a narrative interlaced with pain and unexpected allies. It was then that he acknowledged the depth of his discomfort. Was he prepared to face whatever revelations the letter contained? Could he step beyond the facade of the grieving widower, ready to reconcile a past others deemed better left alone? Richard gave himself a moment to breathe. He couldn't push away the budding connection between Maria and the twins, nor could he forget the secrets hidden in that letter that continuously beckoned. He stood at a precipice, caught between embracing his role as a father and confronting his own limitations. The decision loomed like a dark cloud over him, intensifying like the rhythm of his racing heart. The board had been set, the pieces were in motion. He could no longer deny the inevitable. It was time to face not just external realities but also the shadows within. He understood that the moment had come to reach out, to forge a path that could redefine who he was and what kind of father he truly wanted to be. As he stepped toward the girl's room, determination etched on his face, one question gripped him with its unyielding grip: would uncovering the truth free him or bind him further? The time had come to face the whispers of the past, and with every beat of his heart, he sensed the crackling energy of a storm gathering strength. Richard paused, his hand resting on the door frame, heart thrumming with anticipation and dread. There was no turning back now. The contents of the letter combined with the unsettling changes in his life constituted a critical moment of transformation, one he could no longer ignore. He pushed open the door to the girl's room. Their laughter filled the air, sticky sweet with the innocence he so desperately wanted to protect. Yet, within him lay a storm, a tempest stirred by long-buried truths. The twins, drawing together in a huddle, glanced up at him with eager smiles, the light from their bedside lamp casting gentle shadows on their faces. "What do you want to read today?" Lily asked, bouncing slightly in her seat, her enthusiasm a buoy against his looming anxieties. "Anything you want," he replied, though the words felt hollow. He wanted to be there for them, to share in their joy, but the allure of the letter's revelations nagged at his conscience, an unwanted specter disrupting his thoughts. He realized he had been focusing on his own turmoil instead of truly engaging with them. "Let's start with the one about the brave knight," Rose suggested, enthusiasm radiating from her. Richard settled into the chair beside them, allowing himself to get lost momentarily in their innocent chatter. As he listened, a small part of him envied their ability to absorb joy so readily, a stark contrast to his inner struggle. Each word they read together chipped away at his tension, yet the conflict simmered just beneath the surface. The letter sat heavy in his mind, an uninvited guest at this moment of relief. It was as if the past were demanding recognition, nudging him to accept that healing lay not in avoidance but in facing the storm head-on. As the story unfolded, the brave knight battled dragons and forged bonds, and Richard's thoughts wandered back to the letter, the hidden truths that required him to confront not only his past but the impact it would have on his daughters. What if revealing this family history altered their perception of him? They might see him not as the steadfast father he wanted to be, but as an imperfect man grappling with his uncertainties and failures. The knight's journey resonated with him, a path of struggle, growth, and eventual enlightenment. The parallel struck hard. Was he willing to accept the tumult of his journey to forge a legacy for the girls strong enough to resist the shadows that threatened? He watched Lily's small hand gesture animatedly as she narrated her favorite parts, and a flicker of determination ignited within him. They deserved a father who would not shy away from unveiling the complexities of life, who could teach them the virtues of facing rather than fleeing. After the final page turned and the story came to an end, Richard knew he could no longer defer this reckoning. "Girls," he started, his voice softer than he intended, "can we talk about something important?" Their faces turned toward him, expressions shifting from the elation of storytelling to cautious curiosity. The room, once a haven filled with laughter, now transformed into a space thick with uncertainty. Deep breath, he reminded himself. The urgency of the moment tightened around him as his resolve strengthened. "There's something about our family's past that I need to share with you." He could feel his heart pounding with the weight of each word. Would the truth buoy the fragile peace they had built, or would it shatter their world? The answers lay ahead, shrouded in the very secrets that had defined him for so long. "Will you listen patiently?" he asked, searching their young eyes for signs of understanding. Just as they nodded, love's warmth clashed with fear's icy grip. The time had come to find clarity amid chaos, but Richard was left jittery and vulnerable, trapped in the delicate balance between honesty and the unspoken shadows of his legacy. As he began to unravel the story concealed within the letter, the looming question remained: how could he navigate the path of revelation when the stakes were so high? Richard's voice trembled as he looked into the eager eyes of his daughters, words poised on the edge of revelation. "What I'm about to tell you is about our family's history, and it's not easy for me to share." He watched their expressions shift, curiosity mixed with concern. Lily, always the optimistic one, leaned forward. "Is it a story about adventure? Like the knight?" she asked, innocence radiating from her. He hesitated, his internal conflict battling against the need for transparency. "In a way, yes, but this story isn't about dragons. It's about facing difficult truths." The atmosphere thickened, the air charged with unspoken questions. He found it remarkable how quickly he had gone from being the source of joy to the bearer of uncertainty, yet he understood the necessity of this moment. His daughters deserved truth, the kind that would not only encompass the light of their childhood but also the shadows that threatened to obscure it. "Once upon a time," he began, the familiar storytelling cadence slipping into place almost instinctively, "there was a family like ours." He spoke slowly, giving each word weight as he carried them along, revealing snippets of his childhood marked by secrets and pain that he sensed their rapt attention, saw the seriousness etched on their small faces. But with each part he communicated, a part of him recoiled. Would they comprehend the gravity of his revelations? It felt as if he was not only rediscovering his past but also aiming to shape his future through this sharing. A delicate balance unfolded as he continued, recounting his own struggles, his childhood grappling with loss and identity, the swirling rumors that clouded his family's lineage. "I grew up believing that family meant always running from the truth," he admitted, his throat tightening. "But I realized that facing it was the only way to break the cycle." Richard watched as Lily's and Rose's expressions shifted from innocence to understanding, a mirror of the process he himself had undergone. He felt a surge of gratitude for their openness, grasping their ability to process this heavy subject with incredible resilience. "What about us? Will it change who we are?" Rose asked, her brows furrowing. The rawness in her tone struck him. Children often acquired the deepest wisdom from uncertainty, somehow discerning the nuances of adult struggles amidst their simpler notions of love and family. "It might, but every family has its burdens." What's important is how we carry them forward, he replied, nudging the conversation toward healing, toward his hope that they would emerge stronger together. As he concluded his tale, he felt a strange release, as if he had peeled away layers of a mask. The truth had been shared, and the subsequent silence reflected not fear but a fledgling understanding. Yet, as he gazed at their small faces still illuminated by the bedside lamp, a plethora of new questions formed in him about his own responses, about the ramifications of his honesty. The fear that had gripped his heart asked whether he had summoned the bravery required to lead them forward. Would they emerge from this moment unchanged, or would the shadows he had revealed cast long over their innocence? "Do you feel a little different now?" he asked softly, his heart racing at their potential responses. The room stilled as they considered, and in that silence, both possibility and dread constricted him. Would they embrace the clarity he sought to offer, or might this moment forever alter the fragile space they had built together? "Can we face it together?" Rose finally asked, a thread of bravery woven into her question. That simple inquiry set off a chord deep within him, a blend of relief and fear as he realized the weight of his familial legacy would transform through their shared courage. Together, he affirmed, a promise forged in their vulnerability, but as Richard tucked them into bed, the uncertainties loomed larger. The letter still haunted him with its implications, whispering of echoes from the past poised to surface. What would happen as they began to delve deeper into the family's history? Would they find the resilience to surmount the layers of struggle? The ties to the past had been disturbed, and now it felt as if he had opened a door that could not be closed. Richard took a deep breath, resolved to navigate this new chapter, but looming above him, veiled in complexity, was the question: would the truths they uncovered ultimately bind them together, or would they fracture the delicate trust they had just begun to establish? As dawn broke, Richard found himself wrestling with the reality of what lay ahead. The night's revelations echoed in his mind, melding with the soft sounds of his daughters in the next room. The thought of their innocence shading the burdens of their family history weighed heavily upon him. How could he mend the rift between legacy and truth, between pride and vulnerability? He knew he had taken the first step by sharing his own story, but the next phase was still unclear. He had opened a door, but what would stand on the other side? Richard's routine grounded him amidst the uncertainty. As he prepared breakfast, movements deliberate and methodical, he pondered how he could equip his daughters for the journey they were about to undertake. Lily and Rose soon joined him, their sleepy faces transforming into bright smiles, oblivious to the depth of his worries. Their laughter circled the kitchen, a buoyancy that momentarily lifted the burden resting on his shoulders. But as the sunlight poured into the room, reflecting off the warm wooden table, he couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency growing inside him, a call to strengthen the foundation of their family. "Today, I want us to make a family project," he suggested, searching their eyes for excitement. "Let us dive into our history together." Their bright eyes sparkled at the idea, a spark of adventure igniting. "Like a treasure hunt?" Lily exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. "Exactly," he replied, feeling a glimmer of hope. "But instead of searching for gold, we will unearth the truth about who we are." By transforming his historical reckoning into a collaborative venture, he found purpose anchoring him against the storm of self-doubt. He planned to start with what resources they could access: old photographs, family documents, and any stories passed down through the generations. Each piece an artifact, a key unlocking parts of their family narrative. The day unfolded with a series of discoveries that deepened their familial connection. Filming his daughters as they examined dusty albums brought forth laughter and tears, story upon story unraveling both past pain and joy. Each moment crafted an intricate tapestry of resilience and vulnerability. They were not just documenting a lineage but nurturing a collective memory against the clarity of a complex reality. Yet, as Richard supported his daughters in sifting through the family history, something began to stir inside him, fear mixed with clarity. With every photograph, every story, there seemed to rise layers of unresolved emotions, the torture and triumph intertwined in their family tree. He felt the shadows of history creeping out of the corners, revealing wounds he thought he had buried deep. In a moment of pause, he caught his reflection in the kitchen window, a man grappling with legacy, stood there beside his girls, sharing smiles. Yet emerging clarity clouded by anxiety surfaced in his mind. Would they uncover truths he had no power to shield them from? Would the absences and secrets reshape his daughter's perceptions and their trust in him? Dad? Rose's voice called softly, breaking his reverie. What if we find something that makes us sad? Will it still be worth it? Caught off guard, Richard took a breath, pondering the weight of her question. It will be, Rose. It's important to know the whole story. It's the only way we can move forward, even when it's hard. As they continued through the artifacts, Richard felt a newfound resolve to embrace the process, confronting the duality of moving forward while acknowledging the past. The act of seeking their truth together transformed Richard, igniting a desire not only to lead his daughters but also to understand himself afresh. Yet, as night descended again, Richard paused at the threshold of their home, tension washing over him. The shadows of his family's past lingered, taunting him with the unknown. What more would they uncover in the days to come? And was he truly prepared for the truth that awaited them that could unearth latent fears or perhaps empower the very connection they sought to solidify? Desire mixed with trepidation surged through him, a question hanging in the air. Would the deeper truths they sought unite them or unravel the bonds they had so carefully begun to weave? As the sun set, Richard sat at the dining table, where the remnants of their historical journey lay spread before him: faded photographs, newspaper clippings, handwritten letters. Each item once neglected became imbued with significance, whispering stories of lives that had shaped his family in ways he was only beginning to comprehend. His daughters, too, were quickening an evolution within him, their innocence prodding him to confront reactions he hadn't fully dealt with. Tonight, they shared forgotten joys, peppered with fragile histories. As he watched them treasure these discoveries, the emotional aftermath began to overshadow his prior anticipation. What would tomorrow reveal? Would their joy remain untouched by pain? The challenge of promoting understanding while guarding innocence twisted like a vine inside him. The past should never be shrouded, however, how much could he expose? The dichotomy perplexed him anew, threatening to overshadow the progress they made. Let us create a scrapbook to celebrate our discoveries, he suggested, hoping to expand this bonding experience and foster a sense of pride. His voice, however, failed to mask the turmoil churning within. As the girls chirped in excitement, the anticipation felt like a dueling beast, elation bridled against caution. Can we put the sad stuff in, too? Lily asked when Richard elaborated on the project. The question cut through him, innocent, honest. What would it mean for them to see the shadows intertwined with their roots? Taking a moment, he realized this was an opportunity, a chance to build resilience. Yes, of course. We'll include everything. It will all help form a clearer picture of who we are. Richard returned to retrieving items from the depths of knowledge. As he sifted through the letters, the nostalgia brought aching clarity. There were stories of sacrifice, of betrayal, intricacies that painted a vivid yet painful account of their lineage. Unraveled truths were bound to surface. Dad, would you tell us about your mom? Rose asked, her small fingers tracing the edge of an old photo. The request stirred emotions once tucked away, provoking an internal dialogue as conflicting feelings cascaded through him. Would sharing stories of his mother, a woman marked by limitation and loss, thicken the air with sadness or wrap them in layers of understanding? Sure, he said at last, choosing trust over fear. My mom was truly brave. She faced many challenges, but she always taught me to find hope, even in the darkest days. Their eyes sparkled with engagement. He delved deeper, and with each word, he felt the shackles of his own reservations loosen. Sharing her struggles became an act of liberation, one which encouraged him to confront his family's complexities and lesser-discussed narratives. As the night wore on, they laughed and cried, feeling the weight of their history mingle with the love that encircled them. He placed those profound moments like gems into their scrapbook. Yet Richard remained haunted by the thought of the upcoming revelations. What would they truly find in their family's depths and the truths that lined their origins? The notion weighed on him, threatening to overshadow their collective progress with lingering doubts. In that repressed darkness, one truth became evident: not all histories are linear, and not every path leads to clarity. Yet, through this project, Richard grasped a fundamental realization: facing fears reduced their power, and within a multifaceted truth lay newfound strength. As the girls settled in for the night, Richard lingered in the lingering silence of the living room, every shadow in the corners reminding him of their journey. The flicker of a lone candle danced, illuminating a meaningful crossroad. Tomorrow would raise new questions. What significant and potentially destabilizing truths could deviate their newfound bond? Would he have the courage to steer the ship through turbulent waters? He stared into the flame, a genuine resolve sharpened within him, a promise made to his daughters that they would face whatever came next together. Yet, uncertainty loomed larger than before, binding him in silence. What unexpected truths would tomorrow unveil, and would he be prepared for the fallout? Richard awoke to golden rays filtering through the curtains, illuminating his cluttered dining table. The remnants of last night's discoveries lay in stark contrast to the bright new day, reminding him of the emotional weight he now carried. His daughters remained blissfully unaware of the complexities lurking beneath the surface of their collective excitement. He rose slowly, wrestling with his thoughts. Today was crucial, a day of both revelation and potential turmoil. He couldn't shake the nagging doubt that he might unearth more than just family history. He might awaken emotional giants that would challenge their bond. While they busily gobbled their breakfast, he studied them. Rose's innocent laughter echoed in the room, while Lily's occasional contemplative silence signaled a burgeoning depth. How could they navigate the bittersweet intricacies of their lineage together? Especially when they themselves embodied the very essence of light in a legacy marked by shadows? "Are you going to tell us more about Grandma today?" Lily asked between bites, her wide eyes sparkling with curiosity. Richard's heart sank a little as he nodded. "Yes, I think today we should explore some more stories." He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The warm memories would likely be counterbalanced by painful truths that could shift the dynamic he was working so hard to cultivate. After breakfast, he gathered various artifacts from the box: the creased letters, yellowing clippings, each one a time capsule of emotions, revealing the complexities of both struggle and love. He arranged the items carefully on the dining table, their presence a visual cue of the multifaceted family narrative he was preparing to share. "Let us begin with Grandma's favorite letter," he announced, voice steady despite a flutter of anxiety in his stomach. As he unfolded the fragile paper, he could feel his daughter's anticipation rising. He started to read aloud, detailing how his mother had penned her experiences during a particularly hard winter, expressing resilience and hope, underscored by an unyielding love for her family. As the words spilled forth, Richard became acutely aware of his own inheritance. His mother's ability to find beauty amid chaos seemed to flicker within him. But as he scrupulously detailed her struggles with financial instability, he noticed the gleam in his daughter's eyes gradually dim. The reality of circumstances juxtaposed with their own luxuries. Had he inadvertently robbed them of some of their childhood innocence? "Dad, was it really that hard?" Rose interjected, catching the deeper gravity of his stories. "Yes, it was," he replied, bracing himself. "But she always taught me that even through hardship, we can create something beautiful. It shaped me into who I am today." But as much as he tried to weave a narrative of resilience, it became evident that the darker threads were more challenging to navigate. He found himself embroiled in self-questioning. Was he skirting too close to the edge of disillusioning them? Was the truth about his family's history worth unraveling, given potential psychological fallout? The discussion turned unexpectedly raw when Lily raised her small hand, interjecting firmly, "But Dad, if Grandma was so strong, what does it mean for us? Should it scare us?" Her words punctured Richard's internal conflict. How could he answer without leaning into fear or dismissing their ability to process the reality of their heritage? He realized he had to be honest. Authenticity demanded it. "No, sweetheart," he said, holding her gaze. It means we have a legacy of strength, of finding light in dark times." As he spoke, he felt a healthy resolve bloom within him, an understanding that sharing their history had a greater purpose. Each moment they shared today became an exercise in vulnerability, allowing each daughter to chip away at barriers he didn't even know existed. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Richard sensed a burgeoning strength within himself but also a deeper awareness of unresolved questions that loomed. How do you reconcile resilience with vulnerability? Could he help them forge connections to their past while shielding their hearts? When the call for dinner broke the day's magic, Richard hesitated, glancing at the unfinished story still sprawled across the table. The urgency to resolve their lineage pulled at him, yet doubt intermingled with determination. What paths awaited them in the familial tapestry still hidden from view? A chill flickered through him at the thought of the next chapter of this journey. With a bracing breath, he began to collect the items, recognizing that tomorrow would bring fresh challenges and new discoveries. It was time for yet another confrontation both with history and with himself. Little did he know, the true revelations might not originate from the past but rather from the daughters he adored. What latent talents might they manifest as they faced the collective story? Would courage become their greatest inheritance? Richard awoke the next morning, the weight of yesterday's revelations still heavy on his mind. Sunlight streamed through the window, but instead of warmth, it felt like an interrogation lamp, illuminating every doubt he had. His daughters were already up, their laughter spilling over from the living room, where they were glued to the bright screen of a tablet. He couldn't help but feel guilty watching them. They were blissfully unaware of the fraught narrative that had begun to unfurl the history that was woven tightly with struggle and resilience. That he poured himself a cup of coffee, savoring the moment of solitude. The choice before him was monumental, a relentless urge pounding in his chest. How could he continue to share their family's legacy without burdening them with the weight of its complexities? Today, as Richard had promised, they would delve deeper into the story, and he felt a fierce urgency to handle it wisely. "Can we look at the things again?" Rose's voice cut through his thoughts. "I want to see the letter that made Grandma so strong." There was a brightness in her demeanor, an eagerness to connect with a history she barely knew. Richard turned toward them, heart swelling with a mix of pride and concern. They were craving stories, seeking inspiration. Still, the nagging uncertainty clung to him. Would that inspiration come at a cost? "We can do that," he replied, his voice steadier than his thoughts. "But I want to talk about more than just the happy memories today. We need to embrace everything." The gravity of those words hit him hard. Recognizing his own fear and exposing the shadows alongside the light, they gathered around the table once more, eager eyes fixed on him as he laid out the contents from the box. Each artifact felt more like a burden, a whispering reminder of lost opportunities to truly understand their family's narratives. "Let us start with this one," he said, holding up an old journal his mother's. "This is where she wrote about her dreams and fears." As Richard opened the journal, the cracked spine seemed to scream for attention, not just from his daughters, but from within himself. Would reliving these memories bolster their resolve or instead expose them to fears that had been neatly tucked away? "What did she dream of, Dad?" Lily asked, eyes narrowed in focus, her small hands resting on the pages, desperate to grasp something tangible from the past. Richard found his voice wavering slightly. "She dreamed of freedom, of creating a world where we could thrive, even when everything was against her." He paused, searching their faces for signs of fear or understanding. "But she also struggled. There were times when hope felt like a distant star." He noticed a flicker of concern cross Rose's face, and he fought with himself not to withdraw from the exposure ahead. "But Dad, she still survived, right? How did she manage?" That was the crux of it. How do you explain the depths of struggle while emphasizing survival? He needed to redefine the narrative, to illuminate that resilience was not about denying hardship but embracing it. She learned to adapt. She found small joys, little things that kept her going. Richard spoke stronger now, gathering momentum. "That can be us too, you know. Even when we face difficulties, we can find a way to be joyful. But self-doubt whispered into his thoughts, would they truly believe him? Did they have the emotional maturity to handle this weight? The fear of emotional fracture weighed heavily on his heart. As he finished revealing the entries in the journal, he sensed an unspoken connection growing between them. There was something almost sacred in sharing this part of his life, a silent promise that they would weave together through the past. Can we keep reading more every night? Rose asked, excitement bubbling forth like effervescence in soda. Richard's heart warmed, but he also cautioned himself against optimism. Yes, but remember, not every story is easy. Some will be tough. Lily nodded, a determined look in her eyes that surprised him. I think we can handle it. He could feel a shift occurring within himself, an awakening of purpose beyond mere recollection. They were standing at the edge of a profound journey too, and instead of viewing it as a burden, Richard began to see it as a chance for them to cultivate their strengths together. Yet beneath the promise of growth, the fear of the unknown curled tightly around his thoughts. What other surprises does your story hold? He pondered to himself, uncertainty looming over the future. As they began to close the journal, Richard stood on the precipice of discovery, not just of their family's fights against adversity, but also of his daughter's capabilities to transcend it and the inherent richness they could create from it all. However, beneath that expectation lay tension, as he was hesitant to confront the harsh realities that lay ahead. Tomorrow would bring more stories, deeper connections, but what if unearthing those connections revealed fissures he could not mend? The shadow of uncertainty loomed larger, yet a rebellious spirit began to rise within him. What if, he thought, this journey makes us all discover more about ourselves than we ever anticipated? Richard woke up the next day with a renewed sense of urgency. The light streaming through the window felt different now, less like an interrogation and more like a call to action. The laughter of his daughters in the other room was a sweet reminder of what was at stake. He was determined to reshape their family legacy, to clarify the complexities they would soon face. He had to confront the truths within himself to ensure that the past could serve as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. As he sipped his coffee, Richard felt a spark of inspiration. This journey wouldn't just be about their family history, it was a chance to transform how they viewed struggles collectively. He envisioned the discussions that lay ahead, picturing the threads of resilience woven through their family narrative and their experiences. How could he illuminate those lessons without slipping into despair? After breakfast, Richard sat his daughters down at the table, the artifacts of their family history spread out like a road map of the past. They were excited and curious, their faces bright with anticipation. Today, he announced, we're going to delve into Grandma's journal even deeper. But we'll focus on the hard parts too. It won't all be sunshine and roses. An unexpected quiet fell over them. He could see their fascination waver, replaced momentarily by uncertainty. This was a pivotal moment. Their reactions would outline his next steps in guiding them through a deeper understanding of life's various layers. Lily raised a hand, her brows knitting together with determination. Can you share the times when Grandma felt weak? I think it's important to know that she was human just like us. Richard's heart swelled with a mix of pride and fear. Her insight shocked him. She was already grasping the essence of what he hoped to convey. Perhaps they were more prepared than he anticipated. You're absolutely right, Lily. It's essential to acknowledge those moments because they are part of her strength. He opened the journal to a poignant entry. There was a time when she lost everything, he read aloud, his voice steady but filled with emotion. She encountered failure, and it weighed heavily on her. She felt isolated and defeated. He looked up, gauging their reactions. Their faces reflected varying emotions. Rose, with her big, bright eyes, appeared pensive, almost protective of the woman they had never met. Lily's expression was steely, as if she was absorbing every syllable to reinforce her understanding of resilience. Richard realized then that he was not merely recounting the past, he was planting seeds for their emotional growth, building an understanding that challenges were part of life, not the end of it. He took a deep breath and continued, questioning how this would mold their perspective on obstacles in their own lives. But in those dark times, Grandma found a flicker of light, a reason to continue. She turned to the people she loved and what she cherished. The words hung in the air, crackling with potential. As he spoke, secretly, he continued to confront his reservations. Could his daughters bear this weight? Would the shadows of history overshadow their own experiences? "Dad, how did she keep going?" Rose asked, her voice small yet filled with resolve. A wave of determination surged through Richard. She leaned into her community, Rose. She realized that strength doesn't always mean standing alone. Sometimes, it means reaching out when you're at your lowest. Richard observed the passion ignite in their eyes, that blend of understanding and fiery determination. Perhaps this was his breakthrough moment, seeing their willingness to leverage family struggles to bolster their courage. He marveled at how the very narratives he feared would crush them seemed to empower their identities instead. They continued discussing each poignant moment in the journal, extracting wisdom and resilience from the tales, not just fearing the hardships but embracing them as part of their family's fabric. By the time they closed the journal, Richard felt the weight of yesterday lifting, replaced by something galvanizing. Something had changed not just in his daughters, but within himself, too. Their family legacy wasn't merely a history of survival, it was a tapestry rich with lessons in triumph and despair, urging them forward. That evening, while they were cleaning up, Richard's phone buzzed. A familiar name popped up on his screen, pulling him from his thoughts. It was an old colleague from his past, an unexpected connection to unresolved issues that even he had tucked away. Richard's heart raced as he contemplated whether he was ready to unearth another layer of truth that could reshape everything once again. The moment hung in the air, charged with possibility. What revelations awaited him now that he had begun this journey of unearthing their family history? Richard sat at the breakfast table, the remnants of their family project strewn across it, photographs, dusty letters, scribbled notes from the past. The sun streamed through the sheer curtains, casting a warm glow on the joys and pains captured in ink and memory. Each piece told a story of struggle, perseverance, and the profound connections that bind a family through time. Lily and Rose, wide-eyed and full of energy, eagerly awaited their father's cue for the next chapter in their unfolding narrative. Today, however, Richard felt a palpable shift within himself. It was as if the act of sharing their familial past had created a bridge, fostering not only a renewed bond with his daughters but also a clearer understanding of his own identity as both a father and a man. He was no longer solely the architect of a facade, he was a storyteller excavating truths layered within the fabric of their family. "Girls," Richard began, clearing his throat slightly, "today we'll explore Grandma's journey a little deeper. We will face some hard times, but through that, we'll find resilience. Are you ready? A treasure hunt through the tough stuff." Lily exclaimed, her enthusiasm refusing to be dimmed. Richard smiled, heartened by their resolve. "Exactly. Let us dive into the stories that shaped us." He reached for a weathered envelope marked with an unfamiliar handwriting, words etched faintly against the paper. As he opened it, a letter tumbled out, its edges delicate, the ink faded, reminiscent of times long past. It was his mother's farewell to a difficult chapter she had faced, a testament to her struggle before finding hope. As he read aloud, the room quieted, the weight of their ancestors' trials settling into their atmosphere. "My dearest children," he began, "life often appears like a daunting mountain." Richard immersed them in the story of his mother's rise after tragedy, emphasizing how she turned her fears into fuel. The deeper he went, recounting the details of her challenges, the loss, the grief, the more they leaned in, absorbing her tenacity like sunlight. His daughters were transforming into compassionate listeners, their innocence blooming into wisdom. When he finished, silence enveloped them, not the silence of discomfort, but the silent communion of understanding that passed between them. The shadows of their family history no longer lingered ominously, they were now threads that stitched them together. "Why didn't you tell us this sooner, Dad?" Rose asked with a furrow in her brow, a blend of surprise and curiosity framing her features. Richard paused, swallowing the lump of nostalgia rising in his throat. I think I was scared. Scared of how it would change what we thought we knew. But the truth is what makes us who we are. Can we help tell Grandma's story too? Lily piped up, eyes glinting with excitement. Absolutely, he replied, energized by their eagerness. We'll make a scrapbook that shows all sides, a mix of joy and pain. It will be our family legacy. Richard's spirits lifted as he watched the girls burst into creative chatter, envisioning how they could visually express the complexity of their heritage. As they crafted their scrapbook, a profound realization washed over Richard. Confronting these truths had unlocked not just the door to the family history but had reshaped his role in their lives. He had grown beyond the bounds of mere provider. He was now a partner in their journey of understanding and overcoming. That evening, as the pages of their creation filled with drawings, photographs, and heartfelt notes, he dared to imagine a new future. One built not just on the completion of his career as an architect, but on a soul-deep legacy anchored in honesty and growth. Richard felt a wellspring of pride emerge, not only knowing he was a father who had guided his children through the complexities of inheritance but in knowing he, too, was transformed. He had embraced his vulnerabilities, and in doing so, he had redefined his path forward. Weeks unfolded into months, with every shared story and creative project drawing the family closer. They explored their history, built understanding, and ultimately forged resilience rooted in love, the bonds that would carry them through life's challenges. Almost instinctively, Richard began to thrive, gaining not just recognition for his professional prowess but a powerful connection with his daughters that lay within the informal epics of their shared history. The shadows that once benighted him had transformed into stepping stones, grounding not just their identity but creating space for their futures together. On a crisp afternoon, while nestled together in their living room, the three of them received a letter. It was a message from an architectural foundation that had noted Richard's recent resurgence and shared strength. They recognized his commitment to personal growth and proposed featuring him in a series celebrating architects who shaped their communities through resilience. His heart swelled as he read it aloud, glancing over at Lily and Rose, whose eyes sparkled with pride. In that moment, he didn't just see the potential for professional elevation, he witnessed a legacy of overcoming and connection, his daughters embodying the very values he longed to instill within them. Richard understood now the legacy he carried wasn't just about buildings or accolades. It was about the stories woven through the lives they touched and transformed. He felt a sense of fulfillment, a solid confidence forged in their collective journey through truth and understanding. Standing at the brink of launching into a new horizon, Richard Hartman had achieved far more than a career revival. He had conquered the biggest challenge of his life, discovering, embracing, and redefining his role not just as an architect but as a father, evolving alongside the two remarkable women who called him Dad. The journey had forged an unbreakable bond of love, strength, and trust. He smiled, knowing that while challenges would persist, they would face them all together stronger, wiser, and infinitely more connected than before. In this moment of triumph, of clear understanding, Richard turned to the girls with a newfound fervor. Let us continue creating and sharing our family stories. They are our greatest treasures and the bridges to our future. Now was the time to step boldly into what lay ahead, with hope and heart intertwined. Tomorrow beckoned, but today they celebrated who they had become and the legacy they would continue to build together. Now, if you have found inspiration in this transformative tale, I urge you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that light up your heart. Together let us rise. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these powerful stories thrive. We want to hear from you, so comment your reactions and theories about the ending below, and don't forget, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to join our journey of personal overcoming stories.